Welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast, bringing you authentic and vulnerable stories that will inspire you to breathe fire on this world and become your own hero. Here's your host, Blaise Hunter.
Hello, welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast. I'm Blaise Hunter, and I am a fertility expert. No, I don't help people get pregnant. This is a different type of expertise. I actually inspire women to birth confidence, to birth books, business ideas, dreams, passions, and goals, as well as discover peace amongst infertility. After going through my own sets of traumas and tragedies, dealing with a rare disease, and experiencing 3 miscarriages, I decided to take charge of my life and not let life happen to me, but rather become the hero of my own life. I am not barren. I continually birth my purpose every day. So that's why I created this show, to demonstrate how even though we all experience setbacks and disappointments, we still have a destiny to birth. We just need to blaze the trail and be expecting. This podcast will inspire you to lean into your hardships and allow them to be the vehicle that transports you into becoming the hero of your life so you can breathe fire on this world. This week's episode is called Creative Collaboration, and some points we'll cover are: how can we create effective partnerships to expand our influence? What values and philosophies create magical outcomes? Why creative collaboration is so important, and how a woman on a mission to change the world has created serious impact. And I have my friend here, Lindsay Hadley, from the Hadley Impact Consultancy Agency. And she's going to talk about this with us today, and we're going to highlight all the amazing things she's doing. Lindsay Hadley has become one of the most sought-after consultants and producers in the nonprofit sector. Early in her career, she facilitated humanitarian projects in Kenya, Peru, Mexico, and Thailand. Since then, she has demonstrated her exceptional fundraising skills, raising more than $35 million directly for her clients, and has leveraged billions for causes through her campaigns and events. Lindsay was selected as a winner in Utah Business Magazine's 2015 40 Under 40 Awards. She's also the founding development consultant for United for Global Mental Health. Another client of Hadley Impacts is the Mental Health Coalition, founded by Kenneth Cole, which created the How Are You Really campaign, which reached over 600 million people in 4 days. Hadley Impact Consulting is made up of seasoned consultants, fundraisers, creatives, and managers who can handle any project, event, or campaign you can dream up of. Strategic partnerships, client relationships, and measurable results are what they do best. Since 2011, they've been making connections and producing events for international foundations, A-list celebrities, and everyone in between as they improve the world one great idea at a time. Lindsay is a mother of 3 boys and the wife of a loving and supportive husband. She prizes family and personal relationships over everything else. Welcome, Lindsay, to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be on.
Yes, this is such an honor, just reading all of your background and what you're doing and what you've done with different projects. I just am so excited to dive in deeper with you and understand what your passion is and how you got so much passion and purpose for different projects. So maybe just tell us a little bit more of your background and what sparked your enthusiasm for humanitarian projects.
You know, that's so great that you asked that. I grew up in the mountains in Utah and really didn't have the kind of exposure to the career that I have. I didn't know anyone who did what I do. I didn't have anyone to model after or mentors. So I never would have imagined that my career would have led me on the trajectory that it did. But I definitely think helping people was a deep part of the community values where I grew up. My family faith background as Christians who, you know, one of the main clarion calls of people who believe in that faith, you know, and most religions, I think in general, have a real emphasis on service and helping other people and the less fortunate and looking at how we can make the world a better place. And I think that had a huge influence on me at a really young age. And I actually went when I was 17 to Kenya on a humanitarian service trip, and that really changed my life. I realized the rest of my life I would want to dedicate a life of purpose and one in behalf of others, and understood that this was like something you could do as a career, that you could actually like enter the nonprofit sector and try to solve major social problems using some of the entrepreneurial skills that I did grow up seeing. My dad was an entrepreneur, and we did live abroad at different points in my life. We lived in Russia when I was a young girl, and also right after the fall of communism in 91, and also in Hong Kong in the early 80s. And so, I definitely got some exposure to the fact that where I was growing up in small town Utah in the mountains was definitely only a tiny representation of what those in the world experience every day, and understanding how blessed I was to have basic needs met, clean water and education and food and raiment, and just the privilege that we have from being people in America today in general, because even those of us who live in poverty here in America relative to the extreme poverty we see abroad, it can be, the disparity can be pretty startling. And so, that was a little bit of my early origin story, was just my exposure to the international community and my community of faith that emphasized so much giving back.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think we have similar backgrounds. I grew up in a Christian home. I went on a mission trip to Guatemala, and that sparked interest to help the fellow man, help the world. And it keeps you humble, and it keeps you driven to be the change you wish to see in the world. And so I can relate to how it sparks something inside of you, which, sparks life and sparks enthusiasm to be the change, hey?
Yeah, that's right. That's so great. It's really fun to, identify some of those core origin stories with other people and understand that how powerful those experiences are early on as a young person. So I'm really grateful for them.
Absolutely. They shape your character. They keep you humble. They keep you driven to be a better person. So I always encourage that, to be of service, especially if you're ever struggling in your life. That is one way to help you get positive mental health, is be of service. Absolutely.
That is so true. A great hack to, struggling with mental health, depression, anxiety can be, if you have the wherewithal to kind of get out of yourself and see how you can help others, right? It can really help you gain self-esteem and feel a purpose that can really reorientate your emotional wiring. It's really, really true.
Often depression, you feel a lack of purpose, and this negative mental health, you feel stuck in a cloud. You feel like there's no hope and there's no way out. But when you can shift just to a different pathway of be of service, there is purpose in that. And then you do feel fertile in your life, because you are giving of something and you're helping something or someone, and it creates this domino effect of purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate what you're saying. That's so great. I'm glad there are people like you using your platform and your talents the way you are to help amplify the good that's out there. It's really great.
Thank you. Same with you. And, I always talk about creating effective partnerships to expand your influence in my coaching and my consultant agency. How did you learn that through your volunteer work, and what led you to founding the Hadley Impact?
Well, Hadley Impact Consulting was I never set out to build the agency that I have now, and it's still a boutique firm. We have about 12 staff members off and on, and many of them are project-based, 1099 consultants. Some are full-time, and some have been full-time for a decade plus. But we kind of just put one foot in front of the other, so to speak. I mean, in my early career, I started out working in the nonprofit space. I ended up interning in college as a volunteer, to your question, helping humanitarian projects around the world that were very boots on the ground, aid-driven type work, like building schools and clean water wells and medical dispensaries and hospitals. And as I enrolled in that and traveled the world, Mexico, Thailand, Peru, Kenya, with a local NGO here in Utah, I became such a relied upon volunteer and took such leadership and pride in what I was doing that they actually created a job title for me and offered me a full-time job right out of college. And it was my dream job. I was traveling the world, working in remote areas, where sometimes I'd never even seen white people, to, little villages, working with local leaders to help improve their quality of living and address some of their basic human rights needs. And it was an incredible learning curve and experience. But what ended up happening is I got pregnant I was married to my darling husband. You mentioned in my bio, he's the best thing that ever happened to me. My husband is from Australia. He's this sweet surfer guy who's so much fun. And he and I decided to have children after being newlyweds a couple years. And And as I got pregnant with my first son, Milo, I suddenly realized I didn't want to trek these malaria-ridden jungles. I needed to move into more of a role that allowed me to work from home and be with my family. And so I pivoted and chose to kind of focus on like fundraising and strategy and marketing and some of the administrative sides of the nonprofit space, and found that I had a real knack for it. I was really surprised at like how much we could, me and the people that I could galvanize could accomplish with some of my strategies and thinkings and I guess unique personality and skill sets or whatever, and was really pulled to see that we were having the kind of success we had. I was hired by a a national nonprofit that was combating sex trafficking here in America. This was, in 2008, 2007, 2008. This was a long time ago. And I raised then within 10 months, $1.5 million as the only employee of the organization. And just suddenly realized like, wow, if I can do that for a startup, and part of that was, luck and grace of God and gift of other people coming in for sure. But I think there was, it definitely my work ethic and some of the unique, skill sets that I had brought that to bear. And it made me realize that, I could go kind of triple down on that and pursue a career that was much more fundraising, administrative and things. And then what kind of led from there is that I started doing a lot of events, large events with music concerts, eventually music festivals, and eventually kind of became the charity concert lady, so to speak. Like I got a name for that and started being solicited to come and help with these. And as we kind of moved along, but then the trajectory of my career really shifted when in 2011 I moved to Australia with my husband and my two boys at the time. I now have a third little boy, but we moved there and I got asked by this local nonprofit to help put on a concert during the eve of CHUGM, the Commonwealth Dignitary World Meeting. And all the prime ministers and presidents of the Commonwealth, including the Queen of England, were all converging in Perth, Australia, on the opposite side of the continent where I was living in Queensland. And I got asked to come produce this concert for polio eradication. And I was really puzzled at first. The first inquiry as they reached out to me, I'm like, polio? Isn't that already pretty much eradicated? Like, why polio? And how am I going to make polio sexy around a concert?
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't really I wasn't quite compelled by it initially. But as I heard their strategy, and I have to give total credit to this little nonprofit at the time was called the Global Poverty Project. They had 6 employees there in Australia. Tiny budget, $200,000 is all for all of their staff, and just limping along, a little startup. And they shared their strategy for polio eradication and how they were going to get it on the agenda of the Commonwealth Dignitary World Meeting, and how they would try to leverage a funding commitment from the top down from the Prime Minister of Australia, who at the time was a woman named Julia Gillard. And I was so impressed by the strategy. The idea was that instead of relying upon ticket sales and merchandise and sponsorship and donations that would leverage like a profit margin for the cause, which is what I had done to date with all the events that I produced, their idea was to demonstrate constituency, to gamify engagement and have people sign a petition to win concert tickets, and then use that to help the Prime Minister of Australia realized that her voters wanted her to do that, and as her employers, she would respond and create like a bipartisan optics moment where she could then make a top-down commitment in response to this advocacy strategy. And I thought it was utterly genius when I heard it. In fact, when they asked me to come produce this event, they had no money, no team. They had 4 months, which music festivals need like at least a year runway minimum. I mean, it was all but impossible. And miraculously, I guess, the idea was so compelling and exciting to me of leveraging constituency to get a top-down commitment, this idea of playing advocacy instead of asking the general public for checks. I just saw the power in that, and so I jumped and built my parachute on the way down and was able to raise them $1.5 million in 4 weeks of being with them, and executive produced this festival called The End of Polio within 4 months, and we had amazing people come around us to support, including chairman of Viacom, Sumner Redstone, and some friends that helped with that connection. And ultimately, we ended up being able to run this campaign, and we had 30,000 petitions signed in less than a week of a country of 20 plus million in Australia, a small population, which was enough for us to get a meeting with the Prime Minister at the time. And pitch her the most rehearsed pitch of our lives of like why she should give to polio and how Bill Gates will match it and how we had John Legend and Hugh Jackman participating in the campaign and we'd galvanized all this media and 30,000 Australians wanted it to be so. And using this whole strategy of getting the public engaged and gamifying that engagement through the petitions to win the tickets as this incentive apparatus was so powerful that she announced her funding commitment the following morning after our concert, and which Bill Gates matched. He had a global polio eradication initiative pot of money earmarked to match. And as a result of our efforts, and she directly attributed to our petitions and our concert and our team the success of this, she announced her commitment for a total of $118 million for polio eradication off the back of this one concert we did in October in 2011. And I was sitting on the front row, Blaise, and I just thought, oh my goodness, I can never unlearn something so effective. I will definitely be tripling down on this idea. This is brilliant. It was so powerful. Like the most I'd ever raised to date was like $1 million in an event. And now we went from 100 to 118 million in 4 months. It was just so powerful. And so we took that same strategy to the World's Oyster in Central Park, tripled down on it, and launched Global Citizen, where I was the chief development officer and executive producer the first several years, and built this incredible organization with my partners and teammates. And we ended up, being humbled to see we kind of had this tiger by its tail. We ended up becoming the PR engine for the UN, essentially, and every major celebrity in the world ended up on our stage. And over the last decade now, Global Citizen has become one of the most popular and entertaining galvanized NGOs on the planet with, 6+ million social media followers and has leveraged billions and billions of dollars for the world's poor. And it was a real honor to be on that, path with all of these talented people. And I guess that along that way, I started getting solicited and headhunted to come and work for lots of ultra high net worth family offices and celebrities and major corporations and multinational NGOs. And all of these projects were so compelling to me. I was so excited. I wanted to participate in them all. And that's kind of how Happy Impact was born, is I just built an agency so that I could actually work with these multiple clients and multiple initiatives. And kind of the rest is history. It's a long story, but it kind of shows the origin story that I just started out being a consultant, first an employee, then a consultant, and then building an agency. And just kind of putting one foot in front of the other organically, so to speak.
I love that. And I think that speaks volumes as you as a leader, because you started out on the front lines. It piqued an interest, a passion, and then from there it built momentum to end result where you are being the change and you're being a leader, and it's sparking other people's passions because you are coming from that heart place. And so I can totally appreciate what you've done, where you've been, and where you're going, because it's always seems to be coming from that heart place, and I can tell that about you. So that's fantastic, and that's what I tell people all the time. You've got to come and stay in that space, because that will challenge you to do more, be more, inspire more, become more, and inspire others, hey? Yeah,
that's so great. Thank you for saying that. I don't know how much credit I can take as a leader, but I definitely think that any leader, I think Brene Brown said this best, but, I always really admire servant leaders, people who get behind others, so then, of course, they get behind you. And I hope to be that type of a leader in my best efforts. But the one thing I think that they're kind of quintessential components of being an effective leader are two things. One, vulnerability and the willingness to have difficult conversations. That's a Brene Brown research point, data point of like, that's what makes good leaders. Are you willing to have tough conversations that put you in a totally vulnerable position? And then secondly, just the bravery, the audacity to try stuff, be willing to fail. I can't even tell you how many failures. I just gave you kind of a highlight reel of like the pop and sizzle of my career. I can't even tell you how many failures, how many moments where I'm brought to my knees in tears because things are going sideways, or I disappointed someone, or I let someone down, or despite my best efforts made a false assumption. Didn't manage expectations, got in bed with nefarious people, so to speak, like by partnering with people who didn't have the best intentions, and were not honest and did not have character. So many things along the way that I had to learn painful, difficult lessons that have, hopefully, I've taken and tried to be better for. But I think, all of us just I think any of us that are in any position, I think truly everyone is a leader. It doesn't always feel that way. You may have no one that even reports to you, but you are a leader to your peers, to even those who you report to in your way of being in the world. Every one of us has an ability to invite others to show up in an other-centric manner with integrity and with capacity that is inspiring.
Oh, yes. And I totally agree. There is probably more fails than there are wins. And often we don't showcase that because we're a business and we're highlighting the wins. But I always there's a famous quote. I don't know who said it, but either you win or you learn. And in those failures, they're essential to learning and growing and expanding and personal growth and doing it better and better each and every day and becoming a better version of yourself. So the fails, the losses, they're essential to bringing out the best in you and in the world. And that's really important to highlight as well. It's not just about the highlight reel. It's also to say how I learned, how I navigated through my problems. And that's something I teach definitely with my practice, and that my kid, I don't want to show her that I'm this perfect mom, all smiles and highlight reel. I need to teach her how to navigate through problems because she's going to hit messes. And if I just cover them up and just show a layer of perfection, I'm setting her up for failure because she won't know how to actually work through things. So that's part of any business leadership or being a parent and a good person in this world, is just showing that we're flawed and we're human. And that's part of overcoming and being resilient. And that's a really amazing character to develop. It's not about just portraying perfection. It's about showing resiliency and strength. Hey?
Yeah, that's so true. That's a great point.
And all your work, there is something magical when you do combine people, heart space, community organizations, and a common goal. And that just speaks volumes of the successes you've built for other organizations and platforms. So let's talk about the philosophy of your company and what makes you different, and what have you drawn on from all these experiences to make core values for your company?
Well, thanks for asking that. Our company, our unique service to our clients is really kind of threefold. One, that we're fluent in nonprofit, in marketing, and in entertainment. And it's really rare to find someone trilingual in those three languages. Oftentimes people from the nonprofit sector don't know anything about marketing or the entertainment world, and vice versa, right? And so that's kind of a unique gifting of ours, is that we have this ability to traverse those worlds, and that allows us to have a lot of amplification and value back to causes that are it's really the jet fuel that allows things to take off or get funding or get awareness or get engagement. The second piece is that we are totally we're kind of a jack of all trades, so to speak. There's an agility to us because we are a one-stop shop for services. We do everything from fundraising to event production to campaigning to influencer acquisition to creative work and marketing. And, for a lot of our clients, they come in, we can wax and wane with their needs, and it allows us to really plug and play as operators. We'll often come in and activate things, special projects inside of a big, multi-billion-dollar corporation, or start a celebrity's charity from the ground up, from a concept idea, or add to something and help them, get something across the line and architect something that will just win. And so we're really grateful that we can come and do that and plug and play for our certain clients in a powerful way. And then the last is that we have this convener model that we are global experts, and we put in the 10,000 hours to make that claim. The convener model is essentially just getting charities to work together. It seems like an interesting concept, how hard would that be? But multi-stakeholder trans-organizational collaboration is actually very complicated, and it's a real craft to devise and get all the players who are normally viciously competing for limited resources to all espouse the same messaging and content. And as a result, saturate the market and like a rising tide, have all the boats go up. That expertise of ours is where people really seek us out and where we probably bring the most value for sure. And so we work on a lot of these meta campaigns, these meta initiatives, these sector-wide led projects, and they can be micro or macro level engagements. Like maybe it's something in a local state or community or county, but we're getting all the NGOs who are addressing a particular need under one umbrella effort. And so that's been really great. But so in terms of values, when just answering your question more directly, is our main values are, number one, integrity, like being our word, and, trying really hard to deliver on anything that we say we will, and to keep our promises and be good to people. The second thing is our another major value is putting people first, over objectives, over income, over credit. Like other people, and their humanity is the number one priority in our ecosystem and in our lives. And so we attract people like that. Over the years, I've made the mistake of partnering with people who didn't think like that, or I thought they were like that because they were friendly or warm or said the right things. But actually, when push came to shove, when you're in a foxhole and your back is against the wall, do they choose themselves over others? Do they put other people first? Will they be the last one off the boat, so to speak? You know what I mean? And that has been, that's been such a gift to deeply identify who those people are and to work with them and go through life with them and do life with them professionally and as friends. It's been remarkable. And then the last quality by far is collaboration and other-centric, energy, like just being radically generous. There's actually, not to tie it back to faith, but there's a great adage in the scriptures that says the first shall be last and the last shall be first in all things. And from a more secular perspective, Zig Ziglar says you can accomplish anything if you don't care who gets the credit. We deeply, deeply believe and embody that with our convener models, with how we operate as a team, like that, if you just get behind others, they'll get behind you. If you just, have long-term accounting on what, and how to have an abundance mentality in the world, like it comes back tenfold. We just have that belief system. And sometimes it's hard to believe when someone takes advantage or there's exploitation happening. And we're not suggesting you should allow, abusive dynamics, but usually when you lead out with a generous heart and spirit and you try to think from the onset, how does this help everyone else? How am I creating value for others? Not what are they doing for me today? You really just see it attracts some of the best of humanity, that kind of posture in the world.
Oh, that's fabulous. Yes, I totally agree. And I think that's, a very good philosophy to have, because it always brings it back to really good values and morals. And then that positions you to always set yourself up for success because it's coming from a good place, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so often I do see some businesses start off with that collaboration, that moral mindset, but it's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of success and it's all about me focus. So what keeps you and your company so grounded and stayed to those morals to create change from a very good heart space?
Oh, probably the thing that works most best for me is the people I surround myself. I just try to get with people that are better than me as humans, just have better hearts than me, better moral compass, because, as much as I believe in these things, I'm so weak as a human. When my insecurities flare up or my shortcomings become abundantly clear, the protective, defensive energy as a human to show up, right? It's just, it saddens me how quick I am to default to some of these debased ways of being when I know better, And so what I've done is very strategically picked people that just have a higher threshold for goodness, just are more good than me, and I want them to rub off on me, whether it's my mentors or my clients or my team members. And it's incredible to me how far I've come, because in my early career, I just really love people easily. I'm a big fan of humans, and I fall in love with them easily, and I see the best in people easily. That is a real gift of mine, I will say. And so I would sometimes look past a lot of red flags, a lot of dynamics, a lot of things that I should have been hyper vigilant about or tested or just, checked references and basic things of they're asking more of me than is appropriate, or they're not matching the generosity of the culture here, or, they're truth benders in a really severe way, not like a normal human, general way. Like they lack integrity. I would kind of excuse bad behavior and then end up with people and structures and situations that were damaging. Now I've become hypervigilant to like, how can I really vet the character of people and get to know them before we dive all the way in? And when I find these people that are just kind of golden, I just am like, how do I sit at your feet? How do I make sure you're near me all the time? You know? And so I do everything I can to try to collect those types of critters. And it's been so fun. I mean, my career now, I can say there's not a single client, not a single staff member, not a single business partner that I have that I'm not just like madly in love with, so to speak, because they're so special and so good and so dear to me.
Oh, that's so inspiring. And I think you touched on a great point when you said you've strategically picked your circle and your tribe because, you know, I've always said, you know, you better not be the smartest person in your circle because those people ground you. Those people pull things from you, challenge you to be a better person. And, you know, you talk about your husband being like your equal partner and one who fans your flame. The same with my husband, but he's everything I'm not and I'm everything he's not. We're complementary. And that's the same with I pick in my circle is people that can be of counsel and can call me out on things and help me and nurture me and love me and push me forward. And that's strategy because there's a lot of people that are dream crushers out there, even in your circle. You know, choose wisely who's your circle to keep you going forward, right?
That's so great. I'm glad you have that in your spouse. It's such a gift to find a partner in life like that.
Totally. And so how do you help people and businesses change the world? I know that's the big philosophy of the Hadley Impact. How do you help people?
Well, we help people in amplifying the good that they do. So whether it's a celebrity who has an amazing organization like Kevin Bacon, who started 6degrees.org, and we come in and we help him with his branding and website or strategic partnerships or getting media or whatever, or whether it's, you know, working with Kenneth Cole to launch his How Are You Really campaign and find a corporate sponsor to help fund them and get, you know, media interviews and celebrities on board or whatever, or whether it's architecting from the beginning a meta campaign for an entire sector like we're currently working on for orphan and foster care efforts. Whatever it is that we do, we just come in and try to bring our skills, our relationships, and our expertise to the table and then help people that are trying to help people get there quicker and better and more efficiently and more strategically. So, you know, it's funny because a lot of what we do, it's like hard for people to wrap their minds around unless they've seen some examples of our work. And Global Citizen is a great example just because it's it's become very successful and very like well known globally, especially in the space of ending extreme poverty and the Sustainable Development Goals at the UN. Most people have heard of Global Citizen. You may have recently seen, I was not involved in this campaign at all, but as a founding member of the team, and I sit back as like an advisor and friend, and like I'm so proud to see where it's gone. But they just recently ran a campaign that raised $150 million for COVID response with the World Health Organization. It was called Home Together, and they had Lady Gaga and Elton John and the Rolling Stones and you know Jennifer. I mean, I was just going to say, Jennifer Lopez. I mean, hundreds of artists participated in this campaign. It actually won a Guinness Book World Records for the largest online, like, remote digital concert in history. And so, you know, it billions and billions of media impressions. You could see it on every portal digitally that you can imagine, from Facebook to Netflix to everything. And the idea was just that they convened so many players in the entertainment space to get behind an issue, and then worked with a lot of NGO partners and got governments to make commitments and got corporations to make commitments. And they really just charged at this from a sector-wide level. That type of, again, that was not an example of how the impacts work, but that type of galvanizing of a sector is the kind of impact that you could never make single-handedly as one NGO. If Lady Gaga, she has her own charity called the Born This Way Foundation, had she just gone at her own and put on her own event and raised her own money on her own accord, she would have been successful because she's Lady Gaga, and it would have been very impressive, and she's got the biggest microphone, one of the biggest microphones in the world. But by galvanizing all these strategic NGO partners and all of these other artists and all of these government heads, you know, she was able to play that linchpin in this effort that brought together this greater sum of all the parts. And that's that's like basically what we do is we help people architect and figure out those types of strategies.
Oh, that sounds like such an amazing job and just so rewarding for, your passion. And I just applaud you. And that's a fantastic story that you've created for yourself from just starting off doing, volunteer work to here where you are today. And that leads me kind of into my last point of what is your legacy?
Oh, that's such a great question, Blaise. Thank you for asking that. My legacy, wow. Well, on a professional level, I would hope that I instilled an IP in the world with my clients, my teammates, my, benefactors, my partners, anyone that I worked with or touched professionally, of a new way of thinking about solving problems that allow us to have a 30,000-foot view that is much more, again, other-centric. I use that term quite a bit, but really wildly generous, like thinking about what can I bring to the sum of all the parts instead of positioning myself as a competitor. I hope that I can leave that as like my mark professionally with the work we did as consultants, with how we approach solving problems. It's funny because, as humans, often common sense is not common practice. And I think we all know we go farther when we go together. Like everyone knows that inherently. There's not a human that would deny that we're not stronger together. And yet in the nonprofit sector, these organizations who know that, on the one hand, will have such a difficult time partnering because their scarcity mentality, because of the demonizing of overhead, which is not so much their fault, which is more of a cultural motif and issue. These nonprofits definitely perpetuate into it, but like the idea that they just like have to get their own objectives, their own agendas, it's honestly a selfish worldview. And like, I think it's so human and I understand it, and I'm not shaming or blaming anyone for it because I've absolutely been that person as well. But it's like, wait a minute, take a deep breath. And if we can like think about this from a radically generous, holistic point of view, we will accomplish way more and everyone will win. You'll have a smaller piece of a bigger pie. And if I can leave that legacy, that mark on anyone I interact with, that would be such a joy. And then in terms of like just my personal legacy and my family, I hope that I can leave a sense of bravery and self-discovery to my children and those who love me and those in my inner circle. If like I was willing to, look at myself and see how I could do better and take accountability for things that went wrong in my life and try to forgive and love and tried to make sure others knew that they were loved and safe. If I again, a challenge I'm constantly working on. It's so hard to always do that because of the complexities of interpersonal and human dynamics. But I certainly hope that people felt loved when they were with me. I mean, I guess that's more of a personal component to this, but as cheesy as it is, I think it's the most powerful and real thing in the whole world is love, and there's literally nothing that compares to it. Oh,
so beautifully said. Thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation. I think I could talk to you for all day.
You're so sweet. That's so nice. Well, likewise. You're so validating and you're embodying a lot of these principles that I'm such a fan of with the work you do every day. So thank you for what you do to live a purpose-driven life and a life on behalf of others. It's really inspiring.
Oh, thank you. I think that's, my legacy too, is just to inspire people to be the change and leave a lasting impact for positive in this world. We only have one life. Let's make it count. So, that's the purpose of Blaise the Trail podcast. And we're just going to recap some of the points we talked about today with Lindsay, being of service and how that sparks passion and purpose, and in turn sparks passion and interest in others, and it's just a ripple effect. And stepping into your purpose and drawing in on the wins and the fails to live your best life and be a leader. How creating effective collaborations and partnerships are key to expanding our influence and our reach, and strategically picking people to advise and inspire us and to do more, be more, and inspire more. And that's all part of having core values and a great philosophy for any business or person to have a successful life and leave a legacy. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for coming on and sharing your story, your wins and your fails, and just being real and vulnerable with us. And if people are interested in learning more about the work you do that have the impact, where can people contact you?
Oh, that's so kind of you, Blaise. Thank you so much. It was such a great discussion. And yeah, you can absolutely find me on our website, hadleyimpact.com, or you can find me, Lindsay Hadley, Landsay Hadley, on LinkedIn as well. And love to connect with you. Thanks so much, Blaise, again, and have such a lovely day today.
Awesome, you too. So if you want to learn more about my coaching programs or past episodes, if you want to learn more about my consulting programs, visit my website, blaisehunter.com. I do have a free gift for everyone. Head to my website, free offers tab. There is a video to help you gain peace and balance in your day if you're feeling overwhelmed or have anxiety. I have a video there to walk you through a map, M-A-P-P. And so we need to Google Maps our life and get back to peace and balance. That's it for this week's episode. Challenge yourself to be vulnerable, lean into those difficulties, and have those open conversations so we can rise up as the hero of our lives and let us breathe fire together. If you've enjoyed this show, please subscribe and support Blaise the Trail podcast. Reviews are always welcome and much appreciated. Thanks for listening. I'm Blaise Hunter.
You've been listening to Blaise the Trail with Blaise Hunter. To learn more about how you can breathe fire and unleash the hero within, or to listen to past episodes, visit blaisehunter.com.